spring is in effect. You're watching Daylitor Knight. X is for exotics. I'm hanging out with my bird here, Birdman. Hey. He's the most conceited bird ever. All he does is stare into a mirror. I got a request for someone to see my P. striata. Now people obviously pronounce it all different types of ways now. It used to be Poecilotheira, now it's Poecilotheira. You know you're hot when you're whistling to your damn self. Is that funny? Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You want to take over? Well, you tell them about the damn video then. No, they don't want to know how hot you are. Anyway, let's get into the video. And oh yeah, the biggest surprise of the video, my Cinnabee escaped, and she was out for probably 2.5 weeks, and there was some weird things happening in my basement. And honestly, she's so tricky. She was actually getting in and out of her enclosure. She would go back in and then come back out, go back in, come back out. I'll talk about it in the video, but definitely some intelligence there, especially when it comes to ball pythons. Let's get into the video. That's sexy. So let's hop into this one. We're going to start off with the P. striata. And as I said before, it can be pronounced Poecilotheira, Poecilotheira. Some people pronounce it even differently than that, but I'll just stick to those two. And this was a request from a fellow YouTuber. He actually has a channel. I'll put a link in the description. This is FAF Silva. This is my P. striata. And again, I'll put a link in the description for the person who requested this video. You know, always if you request for me to show you something, if I can, I'm going to show it to you. So this is why this portion of the video is in the video, and it's for good reason. I haven't updated her in a while, so I thought I'd go ahead and give her a feeding as well. I would say, I mean, she's still inside of this medium-sized Exotero Nano. Now she's getting very close to be able to come out of here, but as you see in here, she blends in with the way I have this set up. She blends in very well. She's not taking up a huge amount of space. Only when she splays completely out does she look like she's too big for the cage, but for the most part, as you see in here, she has plenty of room to move around. So I really haven't been tempted to put her in anything larger than this for the time being. I would say she's well over 6 inches though, easy. When she's completely splayed out, she is about the size of my hand, and maybe a little bit smaller, but it's hard to tell. Sometimes she's when she's eating well and she's kind of a little bit when she's not so flighty, she seems to be a little bit more stockier. I mean, she kind of fills out a little bit more right now, which is the case for almost all my tarantulas. They're all starting to pick up feeding again, because I don't feed any of my animals a whole ton during the winter months. They're just not very active. So she too is just now starting to get active again, and she's a little bit on the thin side if you look at her abdomen there, but she eats. I feed all my tarantulas superworms, so they fatten up really nice. Now all the footage up until this point was just natural lighting, so I always try to do natural lighting if I'm going to feed, so I don't spook the tarantula if I know I'm going to feed them. And then once they get the food in their mouth and they're distracted, I'll go ahead and switch to an LED, or I'll switch to the light on whatever camera I'm using. So right now this is not an LED light, but this is just a standard light that will be on your camera, and it'll pick up some of the more details on it. But some of the other colors that come out, this tarantula has a lot of purple in it, which is another thing that you can look in that carapace, you can see just how purple it is. Now this is a bit of an overblown exposure on here, but you do get the sense of the contrast of this animal. It has a lot of contrast in it, which is why I like this genus. The Poecilotheiras are one of my favorite genus outside of the Brachypelmas, which is my favorite because of variety. You know, just in life, you wouldn't want to have the same thing over and over again. What I like about this genus is that there's so much more to explore, and we're finding out new things about these beautiful animals every single day. Tarantulas in general, it's just a good way to just stay involved with a species as they evolve in time, as we learn more about them. tarantulas are very, very good for that. And these families that have these big branches, and you know, and some of these families get reclassified because of that, because they do have such a wide base of tarantulas and sizes and colors and locations. It can be very difficult sometimes to keep it all in the context of just how diverse tarantulas are across the board, which is why they're one of my favorite animals on the planet, because of the diversity. Now this is obviously underneath, and you can see some of what's going on here. Now she's webbed up quite a bit on the side of the cage, so a lot of the yellows and the iridescence of her legs are not picking up, but you can see just how magnificent these animals look. And she is all over the place when it comes to temperament. She's not flighty, she's just really quick to want to blend in. So she doesn't necessarily run away, she just kind of blends. You know, she'll stay out in the open like this, but she never ever runs out of the enclosure. And she's very docile. I could handle this tarantula easily, but you know my rule, if you've been following my tarantula, you've been following my channel for a while, I don't always handle my T's on camera. In this section, we're going to cover Jackie Brown. She's a Cinnabee ball python female, and she has never ever displayed any kind of a temperament where she's always want to get out or she wants to be out roaming around. She's very into herself, and just when she's in her enclosure, she just kind of chills back and sits there. But I had noticed, because she is one of the ball pythons I actually keep in a glass tank, and I noticed when I'm always going to check in the locking mechanisms, I noticed one day that these tarantula enclosures were being moved. It looked like somebody had came down and just kind of moved them around. There was stuff that had like flipped over. A couple of the smaller ones were literally flipped to the side, and I'm like, what the hell? And it happened like 2 or 3 days out of a week for the last couple of weeks, and I kind of found out she was literally getting in and out of her enclosure. There was a little bit of a part in the back that wasn't locked down completely, to the point where she was able to manipulate it enough where she was actually getting in and out. So I would come home and check, and she would be in there. I'd be like, who the hell's knocking us out? And then I would go and change her out or whatever and put it back, and just the way that the cage wasn't locking on that one little end, she was able to get in and out. And I was cleaning, I was watering the tarantulas today and about to clean off some of the dust on the racks. I'm doing spring cleaning in the room, because you can even see on those racks there's a little bit of dust on it. But I was cleaning them off, and her little head popped out on top of my Haitian brown bird eater's cage. And what's crazy about it is that I didn't feed her last week, but she actually is full. She ate something. So I don't know if a field mouse got down in there, and which is scary because I don't like my animals ever to eat something that I'm not in control with. But it was a very odd ordeal. Finally, before we get to the last section of this video, which is kind of like a little bonus section, but this was my newest addition. As anybody who's been following my channel, you know I've been trying to rebuild my tarantula collection, and I've been wanting a Psalmopoeus pulcher, the Panama Blonde, for so long, probably since day one when I first started tarantulas. This tarantula was on my wish list, and I never was able to find one at the right time. It was just, you know, they weren't available. I didn't like the price or whatever. So I ended up having, in the past, I had a Psalmopoeus armenium and I had a Psalmopoeus camergai, and both of them are in breeding programs right now. So hopefully in the future I'll go ahead and replace them with their own offspring. But what's cool about this tarantula is I was just going in to get some crickets from local pet store that I get a lot of my exotic, a lot of my tarantulas actually came from the store, and she was just sitting in there, and for the size and the price, for $30 for this size, I mean, she's a little bit over 2 inches. I say she's unsexed, but I always refer to them as she until I sex them. And she looked really good. She had just molted that day, and I guess she did. I could not find the molt in there, so I'm assuming they took the molt out. But she was completely translucent when I got her. She's actually darkened up quite a bit. I wanted to open up this lid a little bit more, but she's got it so webbed up that if I was to lift the lid all the way off, it's gonna pull all the webbing out. So when I go to rehouse her, which is going to be very soon, I'm waiting for her to harden up and get a mill in. I'm going to rehouse her, and I'll put a lot of this webbing in her new enclosure, but I can't take the lid off. She's completely webbed it up to the point where I would literally pull out her entire webbing system with her in it, which I'm going to save until I go ahead and get her into her new home. Been wanting one of these for so long. Her name's Atomic, after the movie Atomic Blonde. So there you go. Panama Blonde, Atomic Blonde. So Atomic is her name. Really happy to have her. Like I said, she's been on my wish list for a very long time, and expect more new ads in the future, because I really am trying to rebuild my tarantula collection one by one, especially off my wish list, and this is definitely one of the ones I've been wanting for a very, very long time. I'm leaving work right now. Listen. If you can hear that noise, if you can guess what that is, you're better at me than it. You hear that? I'm going to show you what that is in a second. Alright. Now you can really hear it now. And what it is, it's actually these frogs in this pond. Tons of frogs out here. It's just a little pond in my backyard. Not my backyard. At work, you can see them out there. And it's a bunch of goldfish in here. And I work at a school, so you can see the pond and everything. Yep, and there's a couple right there. So that noise you were hearing was these frogs trying to mate. And they're all over the place. There's a guy right there sitting on a... Sorry it doesn't look any better than this, but I mean, it's been bugging me all week. I mean, wanting to know what that noise was, and it's pretty cool to see these animals out in their natural environment doing their thing. So it's one thing I love about Missouri, is that even when there's like man-made stuff like that, that nature always seems to come out. And if I ever leave Missouri, that's one thing I'm gonna really miss about Missouri. It's the all the nature stuff that we have around here. Just everywhere you go, especially this time of year where it's early spring and everybody's starting to come out. And again, I'm sorry for the poor quality of this video, but I just wanted to state it, that one of the things, even though I say I can't stand living in Missouri a lot of times, one of the things I love about it is that it's full of life, and it's full of a lot of animal life and things like that. So if you're into animals, herping in Missouri, anywhere you go, even in the city, you're gonna find some really interesting stuff. And that's pretty cool, because I talk to a lot of people who don't live in such herpetological rich environments, and it sucks for them, because you have to constantly, everything's on television instead of being able to see it yourself. It's on television, and that's hard because you want to get out there and be hands-on. So if I ever leave Missouri full time and I want to come back here, that's one thing I am gonna miss, because when it gets spring around here, it's those animals come out, and it's just so much fun to see all the reptiles and the birds start chirping, and it's sappy, but it's cool. It's one of the pluses of living in St. Louis, Missouri, is the animals. And that was just a little taste of it. Just one of the things that just makes me bittersweet. The winters here suck, but it makes me want to go to an environment where this type of thing we have here in spring, here in Missouri, is year-round in other places, and those are the places I would love to go to. You know, any place on the coast near the beach. I am a beach person, so definitely bittersweet here in Missouri. It's my hometown, but only about 6 to 8 months out of the year I get to really go outside and enjoy the animal life we have out here, because in the winter months it is so frigid cold, you might as well be living in the Arctic. So it's definitely cool to just see little things like that. Just reminds me of how much I love animals.